my dear students, my name is Reshma Patnaik and today I am here to explain you briefly on your chemistry topic, that is metals and non-metals of grade 8. So before getting into this chapter, let's see what an element actually means. Element. What is an element? An element is a pure substance which cannot be broken down further into simpler compounds is said to be an element. Now, what are the examples of element? Hydrogen, helium, lithium, beryllium, boron, calcium, magnesium, aluminium. All of these are the examples of elements. Now, as you have already seen in your earlier classes that an elements in your periodic table. Now, these elements have been further classified into three types, that is metals, non-metals and metalloids. Now, what these metals mean? Now, metals are those substances which are hard, lustrous and which are good conductors of heat and electricity, malleable and ductile. Now, what is hard? Hard means which substances are rigid, which cannot be broken into simpler substances. Next, lustrous. Now, what does this lustrous mean? Lustrous means they have a shiny texture. Next is malleability. Now, what this malleability means? Malleability in sense, the substances which can be drawn into simpler substances into thin sheets, that is called malleability. Next comes as ductile. What is ductile? Ductile means the substances which can be drawn into thin wires is said to be ductile. And next is the good conductors of heat and electricity. That means they can easily, these elements or these metals can easily conduct the electricity and heat. Next, under this example we have calcium, magnesium, aluminium, etc. These are the examples of metals. Now, in these metals we have some exceptionals. Like for example, if you see sodium and potassium. These are the two metals which are very soft, so which can be easily cut down with the knife. And next comes is the mercury. And now this mercury is generally exists in the liquid state. Except this, these are the exceptionals. Now except these, rest all are the solid in state. Next comes is the non-metals. Now non-metals are those substances which are very soft, dull in appearance and also poor conductors of heat and electricity. Now, soft in sense which can be easily cut down, and the next comes is poor conductors, that means they cannot conduct the electricity. Next, they are dull in appearance, so that you can easily understand what it means. Next is non-metals example comes. Non-metals example is sulfur, oxygen, phosphorus and many more. These are the examples of non-metals. Now, what does this metalloids mean? Now, metalloids are those substances which show the properties of both metal as well as non-metal are said to be the metalloids. So, this was the basic introduction of the topic metals and non-metals. Now, let's get into the physical properties of metals and non-metals. Now, physical properties. Now, under this physical property, the first thing we have is hardness. The first property is hardness. Now, let's see how these are different in these properties. Now, metals are always hard in state except, as we have further already discussed, that is sodium and potassium. Except these two metals, rest all metals are hard. And non-metals, they are very soft. Next comes is ductility. Ductility, metals are ductile in nature, but non-metals, they are not ductile in nature. And the next comes is malleability. Under this malleability, metals, they show the malleability, whereas non-metals, they won't show. I already told you about what ductility means and malleability means. Malleability means which can be drawn into thin sheets is called the malleability, and ductility means which can be drawn into thin wires. Okay. The next property comes is sonority. Sonority means those substances which will produce a hard sound, which is going to produce a sound when they are struck by the hard substances or hard objects. That is called the sonority. Now metals will produce this sonority property, but non-metals won't produce it. And the next consists texture. Okay, under this, metals they have a shiny texture, but non-metals have a dull texture. And the next 6 point consists state. If you say now, metals they have a metals they are generally solid in state, but non-metal except that is mercury, which is at liquid in the room temperature. Now under this non-metals, they are generally exist in solid or a gaseous state, except that is bromine, which exists in a liquid state at the room temperature. Here, so this was all about the physical properties. Now let's get into the chemical properties. Now under this chemical properties, according to the syllabus, we have only 5 categories. One is a reaction with oxygen, reaction with water, reaction with acid, reaction with base, and displacement reaction. Okay, so first, reaction with oxygen. When we are discussing about this, first let's focus on metals. Now when a metal is going to react with the oxygen, it gives rise to metal oxide. Clear? Now for example, let's take a metal that is sodium. When the sodium is going to react with the oxygen, it gives rise to sodium oxide, that is Na2O. Now how to balance this equation? Now you have, see here you can see two sodium atoms and one oxygen atom, and here you can see that on the reactant side that you have 2 oxygen and 1 sodium. Clear? So how to balance these two, left hand side and right hand, that is reactant and the product. So as we have 2 sodium and we have here only a single sodium, so let's multiply this with 2. Now here we have 2 sodium and here also we have 2 sodium. That means this has been balanced. Now here we have 1 oxygen and here we have 2 oxygen. That means you have to apply 2 here. Here what becomes is, here we have now 4 sodium and we have 2 oxygens. Now left hand side if you see, here we have 2 oxygens, okay, and we have 2 sodium atoms. So you have to change here and you have to write 4, so that your left hand side and right hand side would be the same. That is 2 oxygens and 4 sodiums. And the same is what? Towards the right hand side, that is product side. This is about the metals. Now non-metal. When a non-metal is going to react with an oxygen, it gives rise to non-metallic oxide. Now example, let's see, is a carbon. When a carbon is going to react with oxygen, it gives rise to carbon dioxide. Now the same thing here also, you have to balance the equation from the reactant and the product side. Now here we have 1 carbon atom and we have 2 oxygen atom, and here we have 1 carbon atom and 2 oxygen atom. So here you need not to balance the equation, it's already in a balanced state. So this was about the